So how many in here teach Pathway? Anybody? Wow, almost everybody. In Pathway, those discussion boards are just really, really important, especially in this L version that I teach. It gets students going. It improves their language skills. So I did a little bit of research. These are Moore and Kearsley and Aston. They've done a lot of research. If you're interested in online teaching, research aspect of it, they're the foremost researchers. So speaking about just your typical online class, they said students who experience isolation in distance courses drop out at rates of 30 to 50%. Pretty high. Aston says students who make meaningful connections with their instructors are more likely to complete the course. So one of our big factors at BYU-I is increasing teacher presence. And when you do that, students are happier. They're going to stick with the course. So I went into the OL 200 course, and the discussion board is all about teacher presence. And it also says instructors set the climate, support discourse, facilitate meaningful experiences, diagnose misconceptions, model critical thinking, and build communities. I mean, that's a pretty tall order for, the discussion board. So the purpose that BYU-I has set for discussion boards is to develop relationships with and between students, build faith in Jesus Christ, extend the learning, and monitor and mentor students. I mean, I'm not saying anything new here. You guys know these things. From the Online Instructor Handbook, I really like this idea. You can't build it and they will come. You need to come along with them. So how do we do that? So today we're going to talk first about monitoring students and mentoring, tracking instructor replies, types of discussion board posts, formatting of posts, and then I'm going to show you lots of good examples. If you go to the I Learned 3 course that's set up for us, you can see all the slides. I won't have time to go through all the slides, but I wanted to put them there so that you can go back and look at them. So we'll talk first about monitoring students. I really feel strongly about this. There have been instances in my own class and in other instructors' classes where students get really depressed, especially at this college age. Mental health can be a real problem for students. They're on their own for the first time. So you want to check those discussion boards. If you have a good community in your discussion board, that's where they're going to at least drop little hints. You need to check for that. So check for depression, bad experiences, floods, lack of food, rape, all kinds of things. So monitor your boards for that. And the only way to monitor for these things is to actually be there. Check your discussion boards every single day. And when you see something, don't be afraid to delete it. There's a delete button. I assume I Learned 3 is the same way. Delete it and then send the student a private email. So who do I respond to? You want to respond to about a third of your class every week. You're going to look for students who don't turn in the work, but they still post to the discussion board, or vice versa, students who do the other work, but they're not posting. Probably they don't like the discussion board. students who have misconceptions, and just students who need full screen. So you're going to pick your students that you're going to respond to. I really like this, and this is not on my slides in the iLearn community. So I just wanted to read this one. This is for students who do not like discussion boards. So I'll just go down here. This was the instructor sent an email to someone who did not like doing the discussion boards. I saw that you submitted your post this week, but you didn't respond to any of the other students. You know that this is a concern to me. I have seen how well you explain yourself in your other assignments, and I know that you have understanding that you have gained from your job and from going out with the missionaries that would really help some of the students from this class. I have thought more than once that the student would really appreciate some of the things you have written. If you would share a part of your amazing testimony and even explain how your testimony got so strong, it would really help them out. If you got that, would you be more likely to post? Isn't that motivating? I thought that was a wonderful thing. So just about tracking, this is the way I've done it for many semesters. I just export to Excel, and I print this out. There's students' names, the introductory lesson, lesson 1, put a check mark. And the reason I do this is it's right in front of me. I have something, when I'm looking at the discussion board, okay, I've responded to these people. Those are all check marks for when I have responded. And I've done that for a long time. Over here you can see I've added their age, what country, children.
What do your circles mean?
Oh, I try not to go more than 2 weeks between talking to them. So I'll go through, like if it was lesson 5, I'll say, okay, these are the people I need to look for this week. And then when I respond, then I check it. Here's what I did this semester. I just needed more information. I found myself going back and, okay, where was this student from? I couldn't remember. What were their kids' names? I've got all that information, but I wanted it all on that sheet right in front of me, which meant I stapled several pages together. But at least I've got that. So I've got their country. I even color-coded their countries so that I knew which students belong to each other. So just an idea. Anybody else have any other ideas about tracking students? Yes?
We were just talking about this. We have, both of us, I don't know if anybody else does this, but we have actually 2 computer screens. So you can just keep your Excel spreadsheet open on one while you're working on the other.
Yeah.
That's the only way I would ever do it.
Okay. I do my Excel sheet like yours, but I keep it all on the computer. I don't have 2 screens, so I just keep my Excel sheet kind of, split screen.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of made up my own little key. So for every contact, so if I send them an email, I just type in an E, or discussion board is a D, grade book. If I give them specific feedback, it's a G. Those kinds of things, so I can see who, it's easy to see who's not participating in the discussion board because they've got no Ds for me or whatever, those kinds of things. Just
Good idea.
way to do it.
Anybody else? Yes.
Do we always know what country or area our students are from?
I asked them.
They don't self-reveal on the introduction.
Yeah.
I asked them. On the introduction, I don't know what your classes are like, but in Pathway, there's always an introductory post where they're supposed to tell about themselves.
Right.
And if they don't give me the information I'm looking for, I keep prodding. So I find out eventually. So I have divided the discussion board post into 5 types. So these are the ones we're going to talk about. Number 1 is developing relationships, teaching with a personal story, building faith or confidence, expounding on the topic, and relating the course topic to the gospel. I'm sure you can divide yours into other ways, but that's, to me, that made the most sense. And then we have formatting ideas. So formatting is anything you do with your writing to make it pop. It could be color, bold font, it could be using those bullet points, lots of different things that you can do for formatting. So starting with the student's name, scriptures in another color, or it could be your main idea in a different color. Questions in bold font, found that really helps. Questions in a separate paragraph down at the end, and quotations in a separate paragraph. So we're going to see some of these. And just as a note, never underline. Why would you never underline?
It looks like a link.
It looks like a link. Have you ever tried to click, click, click? Nothing happens. Don't do that to your students. So I have a lot of good examples. So as we go through this, I want you to think, why is this a good example? What do you see that you could use in your class? And then what special formatting do you notice? And how does that formatting increase the value of that post? All right? Let me. So the first type was developing relationships. And let me just mention that when you are deciding, you've decided you need to respond to this person, think in your head, how would this student benefit the most? Do they need faith promotion? Do they need that confidence building? Will a personal story be more appropriate for them? So when I'm going through the types, this is what you would think about as you're thinking about how to respond to students. It helps me because sometimes I'm grading, especially if I'm having a bad week, and I know I'm supposed to respond to this person, but I can't think of anything to say. So it just gives you kind of a format, something to go on. Okay, let me think of a story or think of a scripture or something like that. So the first type of discussion board is developing relationships. So here's one right here. Anybody want to read this for me? Go ahead.
Welcome.
That's their name I took out.
It is a pleasure to meet you and see your adorable family picture. I am sure you will make a great future missionary because you are already pushing yourself to move beyond your comfort zone and learn math and English. Oh man. I love your attitude that it will be a fun adventure. That is the spirit. I was the oldest too growing up. I found that I had a lot of responsibilities, and knowing math helped me fulfill many of them, just like you mentioned, in cooking, in shopping, and even in helping my younger siblings with math. Are your younger brother and sister in school? Do you ever help them with math?
Okay, so isn't that a great introductory post? It starts out with the person's name, a compliment, makes a connection to the student. I was the oldest too. And then it makes a connection between our daily life and math, brings it back to the subject that is being taught. And a question, do you ever help them with math? I would never have thought to bring my introductory post back to the subject that I'm teaching. Great job on that one. Do you see any formatting?
Smiley faces.
Smiley faces. So use those emoticons. Starts with the name. Okay. The next one is teaching with a personal story. This is one of my favorite types because we all have stories, right? And Jesus taught with stories. So life is full of stories. And these are the ones that often get the most replies. Students get excited about these. So here's some stories. This was one of my favorites in the first place because it's a short story, really short. You don't have to put a lot of work into this. Someone want to read this? Go ahead.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I once served as a missionary in a community that had no interest in the restored gospel. So after my companion and I failed to teach, we turned to the example of Ammon in the Book of Mormon and spent several weeks just reading people's yards. The hearts of the community were softened, and some even let us teach them. It was an amazing experience.
Isn't that a cool little story? Students were responding to that. Oh, I love your story. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, this one, some of these I wrote down here. She got 7 replies to this post, which is kind of a lot if you divided them into groups. So it was a good one. So right at the top, she says, as a mother, I am a leader of my children. Sometimes I let this position go to my head. Isn't that a great hook? Aren't you? Oh, yeah. Been there. And then right in here, in the April conference, she tells a story. It's not her story. It's Elder Ballard's story. And then she has the link right here. Ends with who is an example of small L leadership in your life, and why could you say that of them? So I'll let you read that. Any formatting you notice on that?
Bold, walk beside me.
Yeah, bold.
The link.
The link is there.
Different paragraphs, so it's not just one.
Different paragraphs. Yeah. Okay. Okay, this was one. She had a really busy week. Let me just have you read that. And then if you can, anybody have any replies to that? Okay, yes.
So I guess you want me to reply to that or just?
Sure, yeah.
Well, I just like, one thing I like about this is creating an environment where people feel safe sharing personal experiences is critical in having a real discussion.
Yeah. Anyone else? Comment?
Sometimes it's a struggle to invite the Spirit and to share testimony and create a gospel-centered learning environment when our context maybe doesn't apply as directly. And I like this, and I don't know if this was in a discussion board or an announcement or even just.
Yeah, this was a discussion board. It happened to be the week we were talking about service, so how perfect is that?
You know, something as simple as this, she was able to be vulnerable with her students a little, share a bit of her personal life, bear testimony through an example, and create an opportunity for people want to respond to something like that.
Yeah.
It's engaging for them.
Yeah. Yes.
I was reading that thinking, and she's gonna get to the end and saying, so I didn't get my homework done. So it was nice. You know, as I'm reading that, I'm thinking it would be like, like, wow, Mary, what an example of persistence and staying in the moment and enduring and to have that, what would be the word? Well, I guess confirmed by getting home and finding this huge blessing here.
Yeah.
I think if you share experiences like that it's easier to help them see, because some of them have very shallow testimonies or new to the gospel, for them to see in their own life, their own blessings, they can see, oh, something similar like that has happened to me, I've been blessed this way. I think if we share our own experiences of how the gospel blesses us on a daily life and how we serve other people, it can help them see that, oh, I can do that, or oh, I've had that experience too, and to help bolster their testimony.
Yeah, I think we have things like this happen to us all the time. Sometimes we, oh, yeah, that was a blessing, and we go on with our lives. It helps to write things down. It helps to acknowledge that, you know, that was a blessing from the Lord. Okay, I'm going to skip that one. Here's one right here. Just look at that formatting. What do you see about that formatting?
Scripture stands out.
Scripture stands out. So, yeah, she's got a story there, but the scripture is what she wants to emphasize, or how she learned from that.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I thought, as I just looked at it, the first thing I read was the scripture. And I found that sometimes when I'm reading like a long piece of thing and then maybe there's a scripture in there, I'm like, start skimming the scripture. I'm like, yeah, I know that scripture. But in this case, it's like the opposite experience. I'm reading the words of, you know, scripture first before, and then I'm like, wait, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
Going to this. I think that's a really powerful example.
Yeah. And some instructors like to put the scripture in a separate paragraph and bold it. So that's a possibility too. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've had occasion to teach typography, and one of the things in a typography course is you don't put everything in bold. And so that would have had even more impact if it had been just with everything else except that scripture bolded.
Right. That's another possibility.
It's the readability.
Right. So all those different ways you can format your words, that's a bonus. That makes things pop, that makes students want to read them, makes things clearer what the point you're trying to get across. So the next type of discussion board post is building faith and confidence. I know that's two different things. You're building faith in the Lord, and you also want to build confidence in students. I just lumped them together. You can put them separate. Here's one right here. Someone want to read this one? Go ahead.
Move forward with faith. Even if you don't study on campus, you can always continue your studies online, whichever way continue. Winston Churchill, a famous British leader, said, never give up, never give up.
Isn't that motivating? That a cool one? Just a simple little thing. One comment right here, kind of an urban legend. That isn't an exact quote. And the story we've heard about it is not true, so fact checked. But it's really motivating. So you might put it in your own words instead of saying Winston Churchill said that. Any formatting there?
Well, stylistically, there's a lot of exclamation points,
Uh-huh.
but I'm an exclamation point user, so I always have to go back and erase it.
Yeah.
But that does, I think that really communicates energy.
Mhm.
Trying to motivate lots of exclamation points.
Yeah. And English learners, they're just figuring out about punctuation, so yeah, that's okay. I like exclamation points. People are always erasing them on me. I'm like, oh, no.
I appreciate how short it was too.
Yeah, nice and short.
Yeah, just right.
Okay, let's see. I'm so sorry that your area has been hit by a water shortage. So they must have said something about not having water. There will be times in our lives when we are able to help others and times when we need the assistance of others. How have you and others been blessed by your obedience to the counsel of your leaders? Wow. Just brought it right back to the subject. Sorry about your water shortage. What can we learn from it? How have you been blessed? And I don't think it was taking away from the original message of, really, I'm sorry that you have a water shortage. Someone just, emailed me, one of my students this morning, down in Ecuador. Their water, they're having a flood and their water is polluted with petroleum. So they're evacuating. Gosh, there are so many here. This one, always been impressed with Nephi. This one is really nice. Struggling is okay and expected. Hope keeps you pushing through your struggles to make you stronger, while discouragement makes you want to stop learning and to hide under a rock. Remember the story of the little blue engine? I think I can, I think I can. Not sure if that's culturally,
No.
no. But, you know, here in the United States, we all know what that's talking about. Yes.
But sometimes I think when somebody is going through some kind of a trial, and we immediately, I mean, our intent is to try to buoy them up and give them hope, but in some ways that can come across as minimizing the trial.
You're right.
And I think we have to be careful about that we don't just say, well, just take this in stride and keep going, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And they're sitting here in sheer agony,
Yeah.
trying to get through something.
Yeah, I think you have to know your students too, and what exactly they're going through. Good point. Anybody else? Okay.
Just to speak to that too.
Yes.
Instead of responding with everything's gonna be okay, and maybe your response would be something to validate where they're at. Another teacher shared an experience from last year where he instead in a separate discussion gave a story of someone who persevered through something hard. And a student wrote back and said, that's just what I needed to hear today. And so maybe that story is not directed or shared at that moment, but maybe it's given very soon thereafter to encourage them from their own, they themselves come up with that encouraging feeling like I can do this and thank you for the motivation, but maybe not, you're not directing it straight.
Validating it, it's a very good idea. I like that, thank you. Yes.
Sometimes I've been frustrated, like you say, when you're working with international students, you can't even take cookies to them, you know, whenever they're being evacuated because of that or some other thing that's happened, but you can always refer them to the Lord. You know, I know the Lord is aware of you. I know that He is there for you. I know as you try hard that He will bless you. And those are kind of fallbacks, almost a template sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, because I know it's always true. And whether I don't know if the struggle is almost overwhelming and I don't want to say push it off, or maybe they do need to, you know, I don't always know, but I can always fall back on the Lord is aware of it, and I know that He cares. And
I often say, you know, you are in my prayers.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to see the formatting of this. What do you think? It's got the scripture up there in bold, and then the verses here.
A lot of verses. For myself, I don't know if I'd read that. Well, and we're reading so much as we grade, but I know that if the student posts that, they're like, oh, I'm sure that scripture is totally correlates. Ding, like I wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe a little too much.
I'll go back and pick something that really stood out in that particular, just pick a verse. Or maybe even paraphrase, but I didn't write the whole one.
Yeah. Okay, how about this one here? What's the formatting in there?
sometimes I like to divide into paragraphs.
Yeah, I would too.
Where I really like the example of Nephi. If that were a new paragraph, you know, it's kind of like you're validating them, and then the next paragraph is an option.
And I always keep my questions separate, so that's all they see. Just like one line is a question. It's not anything else, or else they probably won't see it.
When I started doing that, I've got a lot more responses to my questions.
That's always the last thing I do. The question and my name, but I always leave it separate.
Used to be nobody ever responded to my questions. You know, you think about your questions a lot, and it was all for naught. No one cares about my questions. Putting them in a separate paragraph really helps. Okay, so here's one here, question in a separate paragraph. And you could even bold that. All right, let's see. Let's go on. We only have 10 more minutes. So the next one is expounding on the topic, going into more depth. So here's one here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but their name. This is an excellent point and, validates what they said. Don't misunderstand. So she goes on and explains a little bit more about how the student might have been misunderstanding that. This is one from Notes from Instructor. So this isn't always discussion boards, but you could always use this on your announcements, some other place in the lesson. Yes.
Maybe you'll get to this, but one effective technique that I use quite frequently, I teach upper division courses though, so I can allow my students to post their initial answers, bicker about it back and forth, and discuss a little for a day or two. And then I will come in with
I do that
my
too.
own post of like, hey, here's all the things we missed.
Let them sweat a little bit. You don't have to jump in with the answer.
Yeah, well, and I love in iLearn 3, we can post and then pin it to the top. I can change my font colors. I can add images and graphics. I can record my own video right there in the discussion board. And so I will frequently go in and respond to the totality of the student questions and sort of answer the prompt or clarify some of their misconceptions. And sometimes that's all I have time for in a week because it's a busy grading week or something else. But I still find that my students find it, read it, use it, and respond. And so you can enhance the discussion even if you don't want to go in and individually correct 5 students in a board. That's a really easy way to do it.
Right.
Can I ask a great question?
Yes.
I feel like I have the opposite experience with pathway students, and I've gone back and forth with what I've done over different semesters, but I feel like they really want me to be posting early and often. And I actually, right now, I respond to half of my students every week. They seem to really respond to that connection. That if I don't respond, if I do that every 3rd week, where I'm doing like a third of my students at a time, they're like, I feel like you're never in the discussion board, because they don't even notice that I'm responding to like.
And especially if you have them in different groups.
So I'm always wondering what's the balance, because I know that's supposed to be a teach one another area that I'm supposed to be facilitating, and I thought a lot about maybe having my own post each week where I model a response, but then I don't want to take away like where they feel like, oh, she said what I was going to say. I'm just never sure what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Here's what I did this week. So I'm been trying to get caught up on my grading, most importantly this week. And so I put my students in 3 discussion board groups so that they're a little bit smaller. And then I put 2 students in charge of each group. I just emailed them and said, I'm going to be away. Would you be the leader on this board? And told them what to look for. They've been doing really well. Yeah, I poked my head in the discussion boards, but haven't really done too much yet. So, yes.
I also post my own. I actually loaded it at the beginning of the semester. I put my own initial discussion board post where I share a story and I share scripture just so they see that model. And I feel like once my post is up, students are faster to start responding because most students, especially international students, are shy and they don't want to be the first ones to post. So if I've already posted on everyone, so I loaded at the beginning of the semester, I put a discussion board post where I shared a personal story, shared some quotes, like I kind of model what I'm looking for. So then there's already something for them to respond to and to a model of what's supposed to.
Good idea. The only problem I see with that is some students feel like, there's several prompts. If you respond to one of the prompts, they'll think, oh, that's the one that she wants me to respond to. You're kind of taking away a little bit of their agency when you jump right in. But, you have to figure out how that works for your class. I like the bold question here at the end.
Can I share just one quick thing?
Yeah.
Just one of my teaching group, one of the gals in my teaching group at the beginning of the semester, she posts, I may not respond to every one of your discussion board posts, but I want you to know I am reading it.
I do see that.
And I'm
so I'm reading every single post.
I do that too.
I'm like, how many of them are reading that initial thing?
Yeah, really. How many of you are reading this?
Yeah. So here's responding to a misconception. And this was 2 students that were talking to each other. They were thinking that there was no conclusion. This was an English class, by the way. No conclusion to that reading that they had to do. And so he goes in and says, when we explore a topic through writing, down at the end, we always come to a conclusion even if it is something like, no simple solution to this problem presents itself at this time. So just simple clarification. Yes.
So that was a really good technique, actually, at the beginning of that. It said to so-and-so and so-and-so. Sometimes that's how you get away from the every single person response. If it works that way, then you gather up, oh, I really thought that Bob and Jill had a great point, and Murray included this important insight, and, just to have a summary.
Right.
Sometimes works.
Right. This is one, this was an English class. She goes through the reading that they had to do and then made some comments to just probe them a little bit deeper. And I'm gonna rush through a few of them. 5 is relating the course topic to the gospel. Really hard to do for me, but I have seen some wonderful ones. You're gonna have to look out my slides and read these. Choosing an educational path. Got 24 replies because every student in Pathway is trying to decide what their educational path is. Some bold, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. She's got a scripture. The last 2 are links. This is the Lord's voice. That's a link to a talk. And then a pattern of revelation is a series of talks that are really good. So that was really good. This is one of my favorites. Constants and variables. In a math class, right in the middle, he says, we are all variables. We are trying to discover what our true value is. But remember, there is already someone who knows our value and is a constant in the formula of our lives, with whom is no variableness. Isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. This is one on slope. He says, we need to have a fixed point where we want to end up, allow the Lord to raise us up and then run with our might. Isn't that a good visual for slope? Financial goals. I like the little question at the very end. Good formatting on that one. Optional discussion boards. I don't know if we have optional discussion boards on iLearn 3, do we?
They said we can put them in, yeah.
You can put them in. So I've had a lot of fun with this, just playing games. Never have I ever, or two truths and a lie, things like that. Posting photos, the introductory week. Post a photo of your hometown or your home. Idioms, had a lot of fun with this. I will say an idiom from the United States, and they'll say one from their country. Or there's some other ideas. So have a little bit of fun. That makes community, and it's fun. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to. So I like this. Let your light so shine. In a discussion board, you want it to come alive. If you're enjoying the discussion board, your students are going to too. So breathe some life into it. I hope I gave you some good ideas here. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.